everyone, you're watching Valley Homes on TV. You've tuned into Channel 26, where you can view us on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6:30 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. And I'm Debbie Giordano, your co-host, along with Todd Flesner, our other co-host for today, perennial. We've been doing this for a long time, so.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. We get to learn a lot about Milpitas on the show.
We do.
The history and what's going on in real estate and such, but who are the folks kind of that are a part of the fabric of Milpitas?
Well, you have invited a superb guest, so would you like to introduce him to everybody?
Well, this is somebody that everybody ought to know in Milpitas. And we're going to get a chance to talk a little bit about some of how Milpitas came to be. And so I'm delighted to have Denny Weisgerber with us today as we talk about some of the history of Milpitas. And Denny's been here from day one, was part of the process, really, of Milpitas becoming a city.
He was a Minuteman.
Yeah.
Minuteman, so, yeah.
That's right. The real-life Minuteman is here with us today.
Yes,
so,
he is.
Denny, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for taking the time. I know you just rushed in from another meeting, a veterans meeting, which we'll talk about some of the veterans issues and things that are going on in the city, but I know you have a busy schedule and you're out running about in the state and all over the United States and talking about veterans issues. So,
a lot of them.
Well, people that move to the city, those that are brand new or fairly new, and even those that have been here a long time since in the 1950s. Tell us a little bit about the history, the beginning of the city of Milpitas.
Well, you two are giving me more credit than I deserve. I wasn't here at the founding of the city. It started in January 1954, and I did not move here till October of 1956. But it was just a small community. When I moved here, there were 1,902 people, and when my family moved in, we made it 1,906 people.
Population explosion.
Right. At that time, Sunny Hills area in the north and Milford Village in the east were not really part of the city. They weren't part of the incorporated city. And there were several town fathers, let's call them, the senior people from around here. When Ford Motor Company moved down from Richmond to here to build the plant,
which is where the Great Mall is today.
Yes, the Great Mall is on the site of the Ford plant.
Former Ford.
And when they moved here, they could feel the push of San Jose. Dutch Hammond was the city manager. He was a great guy, but he was an empire builder in my estimation. And he had
sounds like a Genghis Khan kind of guy.
Yeah, you might say that.
I'm just kidding.
He had visions of the county and city of San Jose being all one, and they could feel the heat of this. So they.
So when did that? What was that time period? 1954, the city was incorporated, and then at what time did the city of San Jose want to look to taking our city over?
Would you believe 1954?
Okay.
I mean, actually, the feelers were out, and in 1959, it really came to fruition.
Right.
And so, some of the old timers, Tom Cardoza and Jack Johns and Ben Rogers and Sal Crackalisi and a group got together. And
actually, there's streets named in the city after those
yes,
folks.
there is.
Parks and schools and all sorts of things around town. Yep.
And so anyhow, they had this meeting, and they called on a few of, as I refer to myself now, a new old-timer, and we had this little meeting to say, hey, do we want to be an independent city, or do we want to let San Jose annex us?
Okay.
And so that started the thing going. The ironic part of all this is in 1960, at the council election, a man was elected to the city council by the name of Ed Edmonds. He was a volunteer fireman in the city of Milpitas and got badly burned in a fire. And rightfully so, he was probably elected on a sympathy vote amongst other things. And I can't say whether I voted for him or not. I can't even remember that far what I voted for. But he was pro-San Jose, along with several others. And that whole thing was kind of like...
That's interesting. I thought that I didn't realize that there was a small group that was pro-San Jose.
Oh, it wasn't a small group. It was a pretty good sized
Pretty
group.
successful. I'll be darned.
So what was the impetus behind the folks who wanted Milpitas to remain Milpitas? What was really driving that?
Those of us who wanted to stay Milpitas,
Yeah.
well, we liked our independence. We didn't want to be in a big city. We didn't want to have to pick up all of their problems, quote unquote. I mean, they had sewage problems in those days. They had, as we all do even today, had tax problems and this sort of stuff. And we were determined to be on our own. So the upshot of this meeting was, I said, well, you know, we need somebody to be a chairman. And I looked at all the old guys, and they said, we don't want to do that because we don't want any stigma that we're, you know, doing this. We'd like to have somebody new. So how about you doing it? And I said, well, okay. I said, it's kind of like the revolution, you know. We feel like the Minutemen. Thus, the Minuteman thing, the city seal and so forth came about from that.
Your phone number even is related to that, as I recall. I'm not going to give it out on air if you don't want to.
No, that's all right. We needed a headquarters, and I said, well, you know, we can use my home phone as the headquarters. That took the eat us off of the businessmen in town, the Cracolices and the Cardoses and so forth. And so they said, well, what is your phone number? And I said, it's Amherst 2, 1776. 1776, that's the spirit. And it was a natural, it was purely an accident. I still have that number, of course. It's not Amherst anymore, it's 262. That was the upshot of it.
That's an incredible story. And so today, how is Milpitas, how do you see it today versus the way it was in the 50s?
Well, it's kind of like your children growing up. You know, you see them as a little baby, and you nurture them, and they're growing and they're learning. And pretty soon they're teenagers, and then they're adults, and they're off on their own and so forth. And that's the city of Milpitas. We were very small, compact little community, and everybody knew everybody. Well, today, you know, it was referred to in those days as a small town. Today it's a large town with a small town attitude. Mm-hmm. We still have, by that I mean we still have close relationships with the people in town. Mm-hmm. Neighbors know neighbors and this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. You were elected mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was in, what year was that, Denny?
1962.
Okay, after the fight was.
Well, the election was in January of 1961, and the amazing thing was that the pro-Milpitas people beat the pro-San Jose people 5-1. And the night of the election, police officer walked into our little meeting at City Hall that we were having for a celebration of listening to the vote come in, and handed the city manager an envelope. The city manager went in the office, came back out in a minute. The election was over. We knew we'd won, and he said, Ed Edmonds resigned. I have his letter here. And as I say, he was pro-San Jose. And so a couple of days later, I guess it was, I said to the then mayor, Dick Taylor, I said, well, I guess you're going to have to appoint somebody or have a special election. He said, I think we'll have a special election. And I said, well, that's probably a good idea. He said, how about you running? And I said, I've done my job. And so this was, you know, February, and things were starting to perk up on it. And I saw who was running, and I didn't really, in my mind, feel that they had in their heart and mind and soul what it was we were after. They were good people, and they were very good friends of mine. So I said to my wife, maybe I ought to run. And so I did. And the election was in June of '61, special election. And I, at that time, won the election by the largest vote that any candidate ever had in the city of Milpitas. And in '62, when the regular election came around for the other people, in those days we didn't have an elected mayor. They had elected 5 councilmen, and the council appointed the mayor. And so in 1962, I was appointed mayor by the new seated council. And again in 1964, at that election, when I ran again for election, I was again selected to be the mayor. And in 1966, I was selected to be the vice mayor. And in 1970, after a third election, I was again selected to be the mayor, and I went out in 1972.
Wow.
So now, what was it like to serve in that capacity in those days? What were some of the big issues that you faced? And,
Talk about
yeah.
growing the city.
Right.
Streets, housing,
Yes.
sewers, infrastructure.
Actually,
So
you
is
were
that-
part of laying the foundation of what the city is today then.
Well, a little bit. We had a great plan in those days. The developers, you know, the bare land was around, and the landowners were selling it off, and the developers were developing. And the city didn't have any money, so we said, you know, we'll put the sewer line out there. You run it out there, and we'll give you a reimbursement contract. And everybody that hooks up will reimburse you till you get your money back. And so that's how we got the sewer and the water all over the city. And there were a lot of growing pains. And you asked Todd how was it in those days? Probably not a heck of a lot different than it is today, only at a lesser degree.
But you know, from a person that's grown up in the city and sees it today in the way that the positive attributes, I think we preserve parks, we
Yep.
preserved a lot of open space, and that's why Milpitas feels good the way it does today. It's not a closed-in,
Right. Well, in fact,
congested city.
Milpitas has for a long time had a distinction in terms of parklands. You know, that every community has its own park associated with it.
Every subdivision had at least one park dedicated to it, and each major area had a school site dedicated to it by the developers.
Oh, boy. We only have about 5 or 6 minutes left. What I want to do, I don't mean to jump in, you guys, I want to talk about the veterans. You have a heart for all the veterans, not only here locally, but I know you've gotten awards and you've had, tell us about your service real quick in the military, what you're doing today for the veterans, and particularly on the Veterans Commission here, City of Milpitas.
Well, let's see if I can do that right quick.
Okay.
I was in the United States Marine Corps for 6.5 years. I served in Korea. In Korea, I got wounded. Trauma cost me my leg and cost me my career in the Marine Corps. And I've always had a love for the veterans and you know, flag-waving patriotic guy that I am. I do a lot of work with veterans organizations they call VSOs around here that do things for the veterans. I just came from this meeting that you were referring to earlier that we've got an edict from the head of the Veterans Administration to a 5-year plan to get the homeless veterans off the street and get them housed and get them jobs and, you know, no longer homeless vets. Start recognizing that. It's a tough situation when the veteran is not recognized. He didn't ask to go over there and do that. And I think when they come home, they ought to be recognized as the heroes that they are. Whether they went over there or whether they served here makes no difference. They're doing the job. On the Veterans Commission here, this is new. It's only a year old, and we're just in the throes of getting things going. But we have a flyer out now, a circular out for the veterans to register with us so that they can get information that they may need as to where to go to get their benefits or what they can do. We putting together and working with the Parks and Rec on the Memorial Day and the Veterans Day ceremonies. And that's kind of it right now.
Well, now's a good time to make that plug. If there's a veteran that needs to be connected or get some information from what you